My bike was packed several weeks before my planned adventure, and I'd arranged to have it picked up and shipped to Adelaide. So here's the plan. The bike was getting shipped several weeks before to Adelaide, and then I was going to jump on a plane and meet it there. Day one was my longest ride, 500 kilometres. So from Adelaide, I blasted up the A1 to the bridle track where I hit dirt, and then it was a mixture of dirt and tarmac all the way up to the Flinders Ranges, where I stayed at Willow Springs on night one. I was quite interested to see how the 701 would perform on a long trip touring. I had it set up for touring with the windshield, cruise control, heated grips, steering stabilizer and a comfortable seat, but this was going to be its longest trip. I was excited to hit the bridle track at the start of my dirt, so I put the windscreen away and got ready for some fun. I'd heard some really good things about this bridle track from the South Australian riders I'd spoken to, and as we started to climb up, I could look out, I could see the views getting better and better. It really was quite an amazing track to ride. The track wasn't at all technical, and it was just a nice introduction to my solo ride on dirt. There were a few gates to navigate, which is a bit of a pain solo, but still it was worth it. Riding along the ridge line, it was just spectacular views both sides. The further north I got, the more spectacular it started becoming. I lost all of the fences. I started getting into the landscape that I really love riding in. I love these big vistas, big skies, this feeling of space, and it really was just wonderful. Then, towards the end of the day, I went down Morillana Scenic Drive, and it was just a beautiful end to day one. I camped the first night at Willow Springs Station, and it was an amazing campsite. I was all by myself, but I had everything I needed. About 25 kilometres east of Wilpenia Pound sits a property called Willow Springs. It's pretty big, and it's the scene for a private trail called Skytrek. And I'd heard amazing things about Skytrek, and I was looking forward to riding it. It's about 80 kilometres. So after unloading my bike, I visited the office and got a briefing on the track from one of the owners. To say I was excited would be an understatement. So I headed off on Skytrek, and pretty quickly I stopped and I wanted to get the drone up. Now some will either call me brave or foolish, because the first part of Skytrek starts with a gorge run, quite an amazing gorge. The riding was absolutely stunning. It was fun, the vistas were just beautiful. That gorge was just incredible. And you're riding in and out the creek beds. The trails were just fun to ride, and everywhere you looked, it was beautiful. I was really impressed at how well the drone was following me through the gorge and keeping out of trouble. And I was glancing down at my screen and just looking at the pictures it was getting, and I was really, really happy. And then not long later, I heard a beeping from my handlebars, and I always hate it when I see that sign. It usually means the drone's hung up. But this time when I looked down, I saw the screen that no one wants to see. The drone had clearly crashed. So all of a sudden, this became a search and rescue mission. I had to try and find the drone, even though I wasn't sure where it actually crashed. Luckily, the Skydio has a great homing mechanism where the phone will tell you the last position where it found the drone. So I tracked it down, and I knew it was sitting somewhere in this field off to the right. I was really quite nervous as I was looking for the drone. This is day 2, and I just thought if my drone is smashed, it would really put a dampener on the trip. When I saw it in the grass, I was actually quite relieved because it looked like it had actually got a soft landing. When I picked the Skydio up, luckily it looked intact. So I gave it a little test flight, and it all seemed to fly okay. So I headed off again. As I climbed out of the gorge into the open section of the ride, what was nice is that there was still so much variety. And about a third of the way in, we come to Moxon's hut, which is an old restored hut, which is pretty cool. The mountain range in the distance is called the Bunkers, and they themselves are quite spectacular. About 2/3 of the way in, I started climbing, and on the top of one of the hills, they'd laid out a beautiful picnic table for a lunch spot. But I knew now that I was approaching the last part of the ride, the technical section, and it starts with a locked gate, and then I've heard it is quite a technical ride. So with a little bit of anxiety, I opened the gate, pushed the bike through, and I got ready for what was going to be my first real testing ride. And there were some pretty technical sections there. I would not want to be on a big bike on these climbs. The GoPro never does the hills justice, and to be honest, I didn't actually video any of the really steep climbs. I think I was too busy just holding on and keeping it together. But it was fun, but technical, challenging, and at the same time, the views, the vista were just unbelievable. 701 has a recluse clutch fitted, and I'll tell you what, I loved that recluse clutch on this ride. I was totally and utterly blown away with Skytrek. It was just a spectacular ride, and if this was an introduction to the Flinders, I couldn't wait for the rest of my trip. I took my time on Skytrek, but I headed back to camp. After about 5 hours of riding, I was weary, but I had a smile ear to ear.